Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we're going to begin working on our project that we're going to continue working on the entire term. We're going to build one really big project this term, and it's going to be a first-person shooter game, kind of modeled after some old-school FPSs like Wolfenstein 3D, and I'm really excited to get started. I mean, when people get into game development, one of the first things that they want to do is make a first-person shooter game. It's very complicated, as you'll see. That you're not even going to do any of the programming. I'll be doing, all the programming, and it's still going to be pretty complicated. So, we have a lot of work to do. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I have a brand new project here. I have no extra, packages or anything loaded in here. Basically what I want to do is, just for the first week, all I want to do is focus on getting our textures in here, getting the textures to look good, and start building out our levels. All right. So I'm going to grab, let's import our textures. So I've given you 3 textures, 2 wall textures and a ground texture that you can use for your game. I'm going to create a new folder before I bring those in. Textures, and then I will bring those into the textures folder. Let's grab this and I'll just drag them right in here. It's still, you want to make sure that you extract them out of your out of the zip folder that I provided, because you won't be able to actually use them until you extract them out of the folder, and I almost made that mistake. Okay, perfect. So now I have my textures in here. Now textures, as we talked about last term when we were doing adding textures to our terrain, textures are pretty easy to use. Basically it's just a piece of art that you can apply to an object. Let's go ahead and create 3 objects here so that we can set up some default texture. What's the word I'm looking for? Some default texture options. How about that? All right, I'm going to create 3 objects. Let's create a cube. And that cube, I'm going to set it to 0.3. Nah. We'll keep it at 1 on there. Let's set it to 0.3 on... Oh. And actually, let's make it 0.1, and I will extend the scale to like 6 by 6. How about that? So now we have like a floor. Okay, now this floor doesn't have any textures attached to it. Let's bring the directional light up, and I don't know why I have this weird, I'll just give it a white light for now. That's fine. We're going to change the lighting and stuff next week. For right now, I just want to have a nice white light so I can see these textures properly. Okay, so now if I was to grab this ground texture and just drop it onto my object, it'll do 2 things. One, it'll apply the texture like I want it to, but it will also create a new folder called materials. And inside this materials folder, I've created a material that is attached to that texture. Now this material has a bunch of options. Here we have a main map, and we can also set up a normal map down here. Now the main map is the main texture that's applied. The normal map is going to normalize that texture. It's going to be an extra layer on that texture that will normalize it and try to make it look a little different. So I can also change the tiling on my texture here. I can change all kinds of stuff. I can change the color. So if I want it to be a little bit more red or green or whatever, I can change the color there. I'm just going to go back to white. I can change the metallic feel of the texture. Let me zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see what I'm doing. I can change the metallic nature, make it feel more metallic. I can change the smoothness. All right. Now let's bring it up to about 0.5. That looks good to me. I can also change the tiling. So the tiling will allow us to repeat the not 65. The tiling will allow us to repeat the texture more often inside that object. So every texture has a specific amount of tiling that looks good for the context of the game you're making. Let's try 3. Now, the more you repeat it, the smaller the texture is going to be on that object. I think 3 looks pretty good here. Okay, now let's create a normal map for this texture so we can see what that process looks like. I'm going to duplicate this texture, hit Control D, and the one that I just created, I'm going to rename that. And I'm actually just going to do _N so I can indicate that that's my normal map. All right, that's my _N normal map. And over here under texture type, instead of default, I'm going to say normal map and hit apply. And that's going to turn it to this like weird off blue color. Then when I go over to my materials, I can indicate that that is my normal map. So let's go to textures, grab this, and drag this up to normal map. Now, you may not have noticed a huge difference, but that normal map is now being applied to my texture. So if I go into my normal map and I make some changes there, or actually if I go back to my material, I can now make some changes to that normal map to make it look a little different. Let's keep metallic. Yeah, the normal map, I can increase the amount of normalization that's happening on that texture. 0 means nothing, so that's without a normal map. 1 is with the normal map applied. Again, these are small little details that you want to pay attention to that will make differences in your game itself. I'm going to keep mine at 0 for now. Okay, let's create some more objects. I'm going to rename this to floor. Okay, let's create a wall section. I'm going to create a 3D cube. Now, before I get too far, I want to make sure that my snap settings are set up correctly for my project, because that's going to be really helpful when I'm snapping all these wall sections together. So I'm going to go to Edit, and I believe it's in Preferences. And of course, I went to the wrong place immediately. I might be lying to you. Might be under Assets and Properties. Definitely not. I don't even know why I tried that. Maybe Project Settings? Why can I never find snap settings whenever I look for it? No, that's okay. Ah, grid and snap settings. It's all the way at the bottom. I should have just, looked there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to change, you know what? I just want to pop that out. Okay, so for snap settings, I want to change the increment of my snap to, 0.25 is good. And what that does is when I'm here, and let's say I'm moving my block. If I don't hold anything and I just move it up and down, notice that it's very smoothly moving on the y-axis. But if I hold Control and move it, now it's snapping up by 0.25 at a time. Okay, so I'm going to set this to 4. Ooh. And that's hovering. You know what? I'm going to set my floor to 0. I'm going to 0 that out so that it's easy. And then I'm going to set my cube to 0. And then let's focus on the cube. Okay, so now if I hold Control and snap, notice that I can snap it right to be like just under the floor. Okay, good. Perfect. Now I can snap it right over to the edge. And I want just a little bit of overlap there. And the reason why is because I want to make sure that my interior, as I'm building it, none of the outside light gets in. So I want to make sure there's a little bit of overlap. Okay, perfect. So let's set up a new texture. I'm going to use this gray wall texture here. Let's drag that onto my object. Perfect. Let's create a normal map for this right away. Oh, Control D. Let's rename. N. And then let's set that as a normal map. Let's go to my material, my wall 1 material. Yes, we'll apply. And let's drag that over into the normal map section. There we go. And in here, I want to reduce the amount of normalization about there. Let's increase the metallic. Let's drop the smoothness a bit. Maybe increase the normalization. I want it to like protrude. I want to, oh, hold on. I want to make it look like there's a 3D effect going on here, but I don't want it to be like shiny and weird. Let's try albedo alpha. That's maybe what I'm looking for. Ooh, that's better. I like that. Okay. Yeah, a lot of just playing around with textures is just messing around with it, trying to get it to look exactly the way you want. All right, so now that that is done, let's go ahead and duplicate it, and then let's snap one right next to it. Now notice that this texture is set up so that it's seamless. Seamless textures mean you can put the same texture next to each other. You can put them side by side, and they won't have any, there won't be any break in the texture. It repeats itself perfectly. All right, let's duplicate it again and bring some more wall out. Okay, now we are going to have an issue when it comes to going around the corner. Let's have a look. Let's take a look and see what that looks like when we go around the corner. And the lighting is just not in the right spot for this. So let's, oh, you know what? Because it's a directional, we need to rotate. Where's my rotate? There we go. Let's try, okay, there we go. All right. So now down here I can tell that, oh, too far. I can tell that when we're in the corner doesn't look great. The corner doesn't match up perfectly. So let's try to match these a little bit better. And you know what? I think I do want these to pop right against the edge. Yeah, that'll be fine. Because the seamless textures need to look good together. All right, perfect. And I don't know why that is. Let's move these out. Yeah, 0.5, right? Or no, that's it. I want it at 2.5, and I want this at 2.25. Nope. Let's try 3. Nope, that's too far. So I want it at 1.75. No. 1.5. That's what I'm looking for. 1.5. Perfect. Okay. We're getting there. And this will be at 0.5. Okay. There we go. It's looking better, looking better. Now, I can tell that there's a little bit of grossness going on there, so I'm going to bring that in just a little bit. Okay. So now we have one section built. What we can do is, actually, I feel like I want to scale these blocks a bit differently. I don't want them to be, because if I bring in a reference cube, we'll put it at 0, because I need to figure out my scale, right? And the scale is half by half. Nope. Sorry, 1 there. So if I look here, I notice that my player is going to be exactly the same size as my walls, and that's going to be an issue. We don't want that, right? So let's actually scale these walls up so that they're double the height and they feel a little bit cooler. All right, I'm going to delete these. And then we will continue building. And because because it's on a reference of 6, my floor is at 6, I know I can put 3 of these exactly within this, right? So let's bring that up. All right, perfect. So it's at 4, 2, and 1. Let's duplicate this. And duplicate it again. All right, perfect. So that's going to feel a lot better, right? So it helps to bring in a reference object that's going to stand in as your character. We were building our blocks way, way, way too small. Okay. Right now we're really just messing around with the textures, trying to get the textures to look good. Okay, let's bring in, let's duplicate this, and we'll bring it over here. And let's add a new texture to it. Let's create this wall texture. Let's add this wall texture because we have the gray brick wall and we want the blue brick wall as well. Let's create a normal map. Oh, we got to duplicate it first. Duplicate. Let's rename. Okay. And let's set this as a normal map. And apply. We'll go to the materials and we will drop in that normal map. And then we can start playing around with the normal features. Now this isn't as blue as I want. I want it a little bit bluer, so let's go ahead and make it more blue. That looks a lot better. Bring up the metallicness, bring down the smoothness a bit. The tiling is great. That looks good. Okay, perfect. All right. Now this looks like it matches this, but it kind of doesn't because it's not. We need to rotate this. Let's rotate this 90. No. Let's try to rotate it on the Z. Let's do 90 on the Z. Is that what I'm looking for? Yes. So if we bring this over, we can match it up with the corner here, and you can see that the seamless textures are still matched, even in that corner. All right. Perfect. There's a little bit of a gap there because I kind of imprecisely put it there. Let's put it exactly where it needs to be. 4 and 2. So now that gap between them has gone away. And the textures match up. And, you know, I can spend some more time making my, you know, my individual wall sections feel more distinct or feel a little bit more close depending on what I'm going for in my game. But at this point, I essentially have what I need to start building out my level. So what I want you to do is I want you to, once you get your textures in there and you have some basic objects, I want you to start building out your first-person shooter level. It doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be, you know, somewhat big so that you can run around and do some cool stuff in there. We're not going to worry about lighting or putting a ceiling on. I just want you to trace out the overall level. I'm going to pause the video, and then when I come back, I'll show you what I've come up with in terms of the level. All right? Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I just wanted to show you a couple of things. I've been building for about 2 minutes now, and I realized that there are some things that you might want to see. For example, let's say I wanted to create a huge section of these walls here, right? To match this area over here. What I can do is just select one, hold Control, and select every one that I want, and duplicate. Control D to duplicate, and then I can drag that out. That will help me speed up my building a ton, right? Let's see. Let's duplicate this one. Bring that out. That'll be like my keystone for that area. And it's best to always get in, maybe not always, not every time, but get in there periodically and check to see if your textures, where'd I go? Your textures are matching up properly. So I can see that all of these need to be, I missed one. Need to be brought in just a little bit. Perfect. Make sure they're matching up periodically. But yeah, I mean, it's really as easy as that. You just, let's select all of these here. Duplicate, bring them over, bring them up, bring them over just a little bit more. All right, perfect. Then I can grab this one, duplicate them again, bring those over. Beautiful. Duplicate my floor section, bring that over. And it's really just as easy as that. We're just building out this level, make it nice and spacious, let people run around in there, and it's gonna be fun once we populate this with a main character and we have bots in here that we can shoot, or we might, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to implement the enemy system, but we'll do something fun, something cool. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and finish building out your level. I want to see, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but I want a big, spacious area. And next week we're going to start adding in some objects and lighting and all that kind of stuff. We're going to make it really feel better. This is going to feel empty when you're done here, but at least get the bare bones of your level put together, and then make a video showing me around your level, showing me what your level looks like. Okay, perfect. That's it for me. Thanks for paying attention, and I'll see you next week.